Normally I have a funny bit at the start of my reviews, but instead I'd like to take a moment to say that my heart goes out to all of those who were affected by the massacre in Orlando on Sunday morning. It was horrible to hear about, and it was such a hateful act, and I can't imagine how someone could commit such an act of atrocity against so many people. And as someone who's been in the broadcast world for a couple of years, I just want to say that my heart also goes out to the members of the media that are covering this tragedy, because I know how hard working on stories like this can really be. And with that, this is Old, New, and Now Playing. Hello and welcome to Old, New, and Now Playing, your time machine through the world of movies. I'm your host, Will Robinson Smith, and if this is your first time looking in, thanks so much for joining me. Now, with Pixar's Finding Dory coming out this Friday, I thought, hey, why not do an animation week on Old, New, and Now Playing and check off a couple of good animated features on my bucket list. And so, before we get to movies of the past, let's talk a little bit about movies of the future with our first movie news segment I call The Rundown.
Say it. Don't you say it.
On your left.
Come on!
The work week is off and rolling, so let's start by taking a look back at this weekend's box office. In a surprising upset, The Conjuring 2 takes the top spot this weekend with about $40.4 million. In second place was the big-budget video game adaptation Warcraft, which only brought in $24.2 million domestically. In third place was the magical sequel Now You See Me 2 with $22.4 million. And rounding out the top 5 are Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows with $14.4 million and X-Men Apocalypse with $9.9 million. The big takeaway from this weekend is the performance of Warcraft. While it may have underperformed in the US, it has already made $285 million worldwide, with $156 million coming from China over 5 days, and that's according to Box Office Mojo. Now, admittedly, I haven't had a chance to see The Conjuring 2 yet, but I was able to see Warcraft, and I have to say that I kind of see where that box office domestically came from, because I thought it kind of cheated the audience a little bit with the ending, which I won't give away any spoilers, but if you see the movie, I think you'll know what I mean. Next, just in time for the release of Finding Dory, Disney has unveiled its first teaser trailer for their next film, Moana. The official synopsis is: 3,000 years ago, the greatest sailors in the world voyaged across the vast South Pacific, discovering the many islands of Oceania. But then, for a millennium, their voyages stopped, and no one knows why. From Walt Disney Animation Studios comes Moana, a sweeping CG animated adventure about a spirited teenager who sails out on a daring mission to prove herself a master wayfinder and fulfill her ancestors' unfinished quest. During her journey, Moana, voiced by Alihi Crovalo, meets the once mighty demigod Maui, voiced by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and together they traverse the open ocean on an action-packed voyage, encountering enormous fiery creatures and impossible odds. The trailer doesn't give away too much of the plot, but mostly focuses on the character of Maui, which I thought really fit the personality of The Rock. His eyebrow raise, I have to say, is on point. I'm really excited about this project, guys. I think that the animation looks really good, the voice acting sounded nice from what we've been able to hear, and Lin-Manuel Miranda is going to be doing some of the music, who, of course, is the star and writer of the smash hit Hamilton, which just so happened to take home 11 Tonys on Sunday, so he's riding on a high from a few different things right now, and I can't wait to hear more of his music in this movie, which, of course, hits theaters later this year. And finally, the Murder on the Orient Express remake may have found one of its leading ladies. According to the Daily Mail, actress Angelina Jolie is in talks with Fox to join the cast. She would take on the role of Miss Harriet Hubbard, which was originated by Lauren Bacall in the 1974 version. The story revolves around a murder that takes place aboard the famous train, the Orient Express. It was originally a novel written by acclaimed writer Agatha Christie and features recurring character Hercule Poirot. This new version will be directed by and starring Kenneth Branagh, and as far as the old version, I happened to review that last week, and if you missed that review, you can catch that right here. And so guys, now that you're all caught up on the news, let's head straight into our main segment, your feature presentation. Dumbo was made in 1941 at a rocky time for the Walt Disney Studio. Months before the film was released in October of that year, there was an animator strike. It changed the landscape of the employees and the environment of the studio going forward. And just before the film came out, both Pinocchio and Fantasia bombed at the box office. The studio was in trouble. Because of this, some different approaches were taken when making Dumbo. For starters, compared to Snow White and Pinocchio, which ran about an hour and a half, and Fantasia, which ran for just over 2 hours, Dumbo came in at a lean 64 minutes. They also worked to keep the storyboard simple and not create extraneous scenes that might get cut out of the film. And in the art department, they made the choice to use watercolors instead of other types of painting for the backgrounds, so they weren't tempted to make a lot of changes. Dumbo was the story of a little elephant who was born into the circus life, or rather, delivered by Stork. Oh, and by the way, if the Stork sounds familiar, that's because he's voiced by Sterling Holloway. He also happens to be the voice of Winnie the Pooh and Kaa the Snake in the animated The Jungle Book. Dumbo is about a young elephant who has to rise above the relentless taunts and teases he's hit with because of his large ears. On its surface, Dumbo may seem like a simple story about overcoming the labels that society puts onto us, and in a way it sort of is, but I think that the choices that the filmmakers made when creating the story are really what make it such an exceptional film and one that I really enjoyed. For example, neither Dumbo nor his mother have any lines in the film. All of the commentary comes from those who are expressing either their bigotry or sympathy for them. All of their character comes through expressive body language and a few brays. This movie also came at a time before Disney was fully trying to create lifelike animal movement in its animation, like it did with Bambi in 1942. And so, unlike its first two animated features, Snow White and Pinocchio, this movie wasn't quite as detailed in its animation, and I thought that was actually a really nice throwback. Watching the more animated and bouncy objects and scenery felt like a throwback to Steamboat Willie or some of the Silly Symphony cartoons, which I thought was really cool. Watching the film today though, the movie does show its age in a way that's not at all flattering. In the scene where the big top is being raised, it's done by the elephants and a group of faceless black workers. The part that really got to me though was the song that they were singing, which is called The Song of the Roustabouts.
We work all day, we work all night, we never learn to read or write, we're happy. We're happy, hearted, roustabout, pulling, pounding, flying, rounding, kick out, rounding, into shape. Keep on working, stop that shirt and grab that rope, Harry.
The crows also felt problematic to me, but I was conflicted about that. On the surface, they feel like black stereotypes as they taunted Dumbo, but they were also the sympathetic side characters whose dialogue apparently was based on the type of backchat heard on jazz albums like that of Louis Armstrong. Overall, I did have a fun time watching this film. It's a simple story, but has fun animation that gave us memorable scenes, like the surrealism-inspired pink elephant scene.
Look out, pink elephants on parade, here they come, hippity-hoppity. They're here, and there are pink elephants everywhere.
The music has one glaring flaw to me, but was otherwise charming and won the Oscar for Best Music. I give Dumbo a 7 out of 10. There's a lot to love here, but some noticeable things that held it back for me. One other cool fact that I found while researching this movie was that one of the writers, Joe Grant, who had a hand in Disney's first 4 animated features and then left in the late 40s, came back to the company in the 90s and helped in the character design of some of the great Disney Renaissance films like The Lion King and Hercules, which might have been part of why those movies are so great. So those are my thoughts on Dumbo. I happen to watch the movie on DVD, but if you don't want to own a hard copy, you can always rent it on iTunes or Amazon Video or other streaming services like that. It's not on Netflix though right now. I checked. And so if you have seen the movie, I want to hear your thoughts on it. And what are some of your favorite Disney movies? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. One last thing. Disney confirmed through the Wall Street Journal that they will be bringing Dumbo back to the big screen with Tim Burton attached to direct. Not many details have been announced, but but it is expected to be a combination of live action and CG. No release date has been announced. That will do it for today's episode of Old, New, and Now Playing. Remember, if you ever have a movie-related question you want to have featured on this show, you can always send me a tweet. My handle is @W_RobinsonSmith. Just use the hashtag PopTweets so I know it's a question you want to have possibly featured on this show. Or you can send me an email at oldnewnowplaying@gmail.com. Just put PopTweets question in the subject line. And guys, that will do it for now. I'll see you back here on Wednesday with my review of the 1988 anime film Akira.